All right, good afternoon, everyone. I wonder how many of you are here because I'm only seeing 3 viewers today. But whatever, I don't care. I will keep on teaching, even if it's just by myself. So today, get shit done, part 1, day 6. Okay. Last week we talked about speaking skills in English. So this week, per usual, we're going to talk about speaking skills in a context of a standardized test, right? For those of you who have to do standardized English standardized tests, for example, TOEFL, TOEIC, or whatever, right? You might start to wonder, how do you apply the speaking skills that we talked about last week in a context of a standardized test. Okay, so today we're gonna step through that together. I'm gonna use 2 examples, one from TOEFL and one from TOEIC. Right? Some of you might be taking TOEFL in the future. Some of you might be taking TOEIC in the future. Right? So I would like to cover both. Okay, so before we start, let's say hi to all of my viewers, all 3 of you. So Ajahn Radom is here with us. Get shit done. That's right. We got to get shit done or we are nothing, right? If you are just fooling around because it's holiday, don't take days off. There's no days off. There's no days off for people who want to learn, right? Stay hard, work harder. If you think you work hard, work harder. All right, so since I only have 3 of you with me today, I'm just gonna move right along into the content. So the first one we're going to talk about is the TOEFL. I'm not sure how many of you are taking TOEFL versus TOEIC. If you are in the video viewing live right now, just give me a shout out and hi, Jan Jantini. Seems like we start to have more lecturers and students, but all cool, all good. All right, so we're gonna start talking about the TOEFL IBT section first, right? So the TOEFL test is test. I don't even remember. Even if you remember what it stands for, just give me a shout out. I think it's like test of English as a foreign language or some crap like that. But doesn't matter, right? In the speaking section, you will have 2 kind of questions, right? The first kind of question is what they call question 1. Imagine a creative name right there. Question 1 is what they call independent speaking task, right? In question 1, they will give you a prompt, right? I will give you an example or the example of what the questions could look like in a few minutes, but I want to go through the format of the test first. Right? In question 1, they will give you a question and you will have to draw your answer entirely from your experience and your opinions, right? I believe this one scores more compared to the other 3. Like for an individual question, this one scores more because you are producing the answer independently. So it has to come from you. You synthesize your opinions and give the answer, right? So that's question number 1. Question number 2 to 4, what they called integrated speaking tasks. In integrated speaking tasks, they provide you some information and also some questions, and then you will use the information to answer the questions that they asked you, right? So you might not be sure what each of them look like. So we're gonna go through it, the sample test a little bit today as well. And I will probably try to do some of the sample test questions because you know what, it's kind of fun. Anyway, in each of the questions, they will give you about 15 to 30 seconds of preparation time before each of the response. And then your response will be 45 to 60 seconds long, right? My mouse doesn't work today, but there it is, right? I will go through the most common mistakes that I have seen from students taking the test in the past as well in a little bit. But let's see what the content or what the question could theoretically look like, okay? So here are some of the examples that they have provided us. Question number 1 is the independent speaking practice, right? This is explaining your choice. Again, in independent speaking tasks, you have to provide the answer, and it all comes from you. An example question that they give you is this one. Right? They said, some people enjoy taking risks and trying new things. Others are not adventurous. They are cautious and prefer to avoid danger. Which behavior do you think is better? Explain why. Okay? We will come back and I will try to do this question in a little bit after we have talked about how you would be graded in TOEFL, right? So that's the kind of the first question, the independent speaking task. Note that they don't provide you any information whatsoever, right? They only provide you the prompt for you to answer, and you have 15 seconds to prepare, which to some of you might not be a long time, and only 45 seconds to respond. Okay. The second kind of question would be do I have it here? I don't have it here. I think I do. Here it is. I do have it here. Boom. Okay, so the second kind of question would be something like this, right? So it's an integrated speaking task, which means they provide you some information. In this case, they provide you a short article that they, I believe, show you a video in the test, and this is basically what the video would say, and then you will get a set of questions, right? That you will have to answer. So, for example, let's do this one here. So these two students are discussing the information up here, and then they will give their opinions on the subject. Okay, and then during the test session, the TOEFL test will ask you, what do you think of the student's opinion, right? Note that it's not asking for your opinion, it's asking for the students in the article's opinion. Okay, so in this method, in this test section, the answer doesn't come from you, the answer comes from the article itself, right? So some of you might think this is easier, some of you might think this is harder. We will talk about how to tackle this in a little bit. Note the preparation time is 30 seconds and the response time is 60 seconds, right? Here's another example. So it will give you, oh, this is the tips. Okay, never mind. Here's another example, right? So many animals use coloration to protect themselves from predators, blah, 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 blah. And then it will ask you some example of the peanut bug and morpho butterfly, explain the concept of revealing coloration, blah, blah. Okay, so note that the answer or the information that you need to answer this question come from the article itself, right? So this is an example of an integrated speaking task, right? Why do I go into very much, like, lots of details on this? Because here's the fun part, right? TOEIC. Let's look at TOEIC, right? Here's the TOEIC speaking test example. Right. And in TOEIC, it's almost the same manner. So you just have more questions, right? So you have 11 questions total. The first two questions are easy, right? The first two questions are just reading. Right? They give you a text, and you just have to read the text out loud, right? If you have been practicing your reading skills, like I've told you to, then this part should be very easy. Right? If every night you open up that dictation software and just read a passage into it, you should ace these two questions very easily, right? Because it's not even speaking, it's just reading skill. The rest of the question, like number 3 to number 9, are the same as the integrated speaking task of TOEFL. Right? They give you some information in the form of a video, a question, a picture, or whatever, and you have to give your answer with respect to the information that was given. Right? So this is basically the integrated speaking task in TOEFL. And then the last question is expressing the opinion. So this is just like the independent speaking task of TOEFL. Right? You are asked something and you have to give your own opinion. All right, let's see some example. So question 1 and 2, again, this is just like a reading question, right? So I would just skip through it. Describing a picture would be something like this. They give you a picture and they will give you about 30 seconds to prepare and then 45 seconds to talk about the picture, right? We will go through how to tackle each of these questions in a little bit because there are more important things that I want to show you. Question 4 to 6 is something like this, right? So imagine that a Canadian marketing firm is doing research in your country. You have agreed to participate in a telephone interview about television viewing, right? And then it's just ask you some question, like how often do you watch the television? And you just have to provide honest answer, right? What kinds of program do you usually watch? If you don't watch movie, then if you don't watch TV, then just make something up. All right. And then the rest is just almost the same, like question. Question 7 to 9, this is again just like the integrated speaking task of TOEFL. So in this case, they give you this schedule for an event, and you happen to be an event manager, right? And somebody would call you, and they will ask you some information about the event. For example, how much does conference attendance cost, right? And the answer that you give them have to come from the information that was given by the test. So in this case, you said, oh, are you a member of the Business Information Center? Right? If you are, then it's $75. If you're not a member, the attendance cost will be about $95. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that you have to do. All right, and then question number 10, this one is getting more involved because you will hear something, right? In this case, you are a banker and a customer called in and talk about how her ATM card got eaten up by the ATM machine. Right? So you have to provide her a solution. Right? So this is a mixture between the integrated speaking task and the independent one because you are given some information, but not all of them. So you have to propose a solution to the question. Right? And then lastly, this is the same thing. Question 11 would be something like this. Just like the independent speaking task of TOEFL, right? So some people prefer to take a job that does not pay well, but does provide a lot of time off from work. What is your opinion about taking a job with a low salary that has a lot of vacation time? Give reasons for your opinion. Note that this one, they don't give you any information at all, right? They just ask you, what do you think? Okay. So I give you all of that rundown of the content of the 2 tests because of this. This is the most important part. If you're going into a test, you need to know how they're going to grade you, right? So let's start with the TOEIC. Actually, let's start with the TOEFL because the TOEIC is kind of intimidating with the color scheme that they use, which also happened to be TE color scheme, right? I like purple, not that kind of purple. Anyway, off topic there. In TOEFL, your speaking ability are graded on 4 factors, right? If you have taken TOEFL in the past before and you have not looked at this, I don't want to call you names, but you are pretty reckless with your test fee, right? Always go into a test knowing exactly how they're going to grade you. Every time. Every single time. Okay, so in TOEFL, they grade you on 4 things. The first one is general description, right? So note that what they're looking for here is that the response fulfills the demands of the task, right? The response fulfills the demands of the task. So this is one of the major mistakes. My mouse doesn't work today. I need a new mouse. Ajahn Varadon, we need a new mouse at this meeting room. He's the budget holder. Anyway, so the response needs to fulfill the demands of the task, right? This is one of the most common mistakes that students do in a standardized test. Let me give you an example, right, from one of the tests, sample tests that they provide. Let's see. I have it somewhere, right? TOEFL IBT speaking tests. There you go. This one. For example, if you were given this question, right? Some people enjoy taking risks and trying new things. Others are not adventurous. They are cautious and prefer to avoid danger. Which behavior do you think is better, right? the true answer coming from you would be probably neither, right? You need both kind of people. You need some people to take risks. You need some people that don't take risks for the society to evolve and move forward, right? You need both kind of people. However, you are not being tested on your intelligence. Right? Let me repeat that again. In TOEFL and TOEIC, they are not testing your intelligence. They don't want to hear a philosophical argument on why society needs both kind of people. Okay? They don't care how smart you are. They only want to test your English. So unless you are absolutely sure that you can give like a well thought out philosophical argument about why society needs both kind of people, don't, right? Because that is the answer that is harder, right? That is the kind of answer that is hard. It takes time to develop. You only have 45 seconds to have a full-fledged answer to this question, and my mouse just kind of died again. So you only have 45 seconds to give a well thought out answer, right? You could give the most intellectual answer you have ever thought of, but that should take you more than 45 seconds, right? So the easiest way to tackle this kind of question is to pick one, even though you don't believe it. I'm not saying be fake in the test room, right? But obviously you have one that you prefer, or you have one that you more aligned with. Okay. So for example, me personally, if you ask me this question and I have say 10 minutes to talk to you about it, I would say, hey, you need both kind of people, right? But if I was in a TOEFL test, I would be like, oh yeah, we definitely want people that take risk, because people that take risk are the people that become entrepreneurs and start startup companies. Startup companies are the kind of companies that create innovation that move the society forward, and the society moves forward only because of new innovation or people taking risks and come up with new innovation. For example, Facebook and Google and Apple that create smartphone revolutionize the information industry, right? It gives information out to everyone freely and cheaply. Boom, 45 seconds, right? Even though I actually don't believe in that answer. I believe society needs both kind of people. But I had just given you a very convincing argument on why people should take more risk, right? So again, this kind of thing, they're not looking to check how smart you are. So don't try to be a smart ass unless you can be one. Unless you're like, I am absolutely sure I can slaughter this question in 45 seconds, even though it's a very philosophical and complex argument, right? So you need to fulfill the demand of the task, right? Don't just go like, I think we need both. Just fulfill the task and move on. You are being tested on your English. Okay. So again, you need to exhibit sustained and coherent discourse, right? For example, my answer just now, I start with, hey, people should take more risks. Why should people take risks? Because these are the people that make startup companies. Why do we care about startup companies? Because startup companies create innovation. Why do we care about innovation? Because innovation changed the world and moved the world forward, right? So you can see the line of the logical train of thought from the start to the finish, right? So in the end, people will take risks, create innovation that moves society forward. And then I end the conversation with examples, right? Like Facebook, Google, and why they are important. They are, oh my God, my phone just responded to the word Google. So I ended with an example of, hey, these startup companies had created world-changing innovation, and it has revolutionized the information industry, right? Boom, nice and clean, simple answer, coherent discourse. All right. So that's my first tip for this kind of question. Don't be a smart ass. Just pick an answer, go with it. All right. Delivery. This is another common mistake that people do. Either they are so inconfident in their speaking skills and end the conversation too early. Again, you have 45 seconds to talk, right? You don't want to spend only 10 seconds. Right? You want to fill up the time, right? If you don't hit 40 seconds, I can guarantee that you will not get good grade on the TOEFL and the TOEIC. Why? Because the question that they pick, right, for independent speaking tasks are almost always very complex, right? These questions are almost guaranteed that in a real conversation, it would take more than 10 minutes to actually talk about, right? And the fact that you cannot fill 45 seconds of space with your thought and opinions signal to them that you probably can't speak well, right? So aim to fill up the space, aim to fill up the amount of time that they give you. On the other hand, do not overflow because they will cut you off, right? Do not overflow the 45 seconds that they give you or whatever number of seconds that they indicate, right? So again, aim for the right amount of time. The other mistake for the delivery that I typically see is that people either speak too slow with a lot of pauses, right? The way I'm speaking right now would be perfectly fine in a test setting because I speak at a normal conversation pace. However, students, sometimes I see they're speaking too fast because they are super nervous about their answer and they don't know how to answer it. And they use a lot of fillers because they're not sure what to think because they need some time to think, but they just want to fill up the space. So they just keep talking, and it doesn't actually deliver any answer at all, right? That's way too fast, right? Way too fast. Slow down, calm down. You have all the time in the world. 45 seconds is actually quite long, okay? Just speaking at your normal conversation pace. If you're not sure what would be your normal conversation pace, it's definitely the pace that you can breathe, right? Don't just go all in like I did, right? Just speak a sentence, breathe, and then speak another sentence, right? Just like you're speaking Thai or Chinese or Japanese or whatever your native languages are. Okay, so don't go too fast. On the other hand, don't go too slow, right? You want to be natural when it comes to speaking tests. Do not speak too slow because it is annoying. That's the bottom line I'm going to tell you. If I'm a test grader and you speak like that to me, I'd be like, you know what? This person is not going to get a perfect score, right? So how do you get to be at the right pace when you speak? Well, basically you need practice, right? Just go to that mirror at the end of the night, talk to that dictation software, pick a topic and talk about it. Pick a topic that is of interest to you, like climate change. Today, I'm going to talk about climate change in front of a mirror for 45 seconds. Or today, I'm going to talk about politics for 45 seconds. Today, I'm going to talk about how dirty PSU bathrooms are for 45 seconds, right? It doesn't matter. Just pick a topic so you get used to speaking at the right pace for you, right? I am typically a very fast speaking person, right? If you have been in my lecture, I speak really fast normally, but I have to slow down for this video or all the video for that matter, because in a speaking test, that's what they're looking for. Like they're just looking for good flow. They're not looking for like speed. All right. Anyway, another thing that I want to point out is this one: pronunciation and intonation patterns, right? This is why I said in the past videos, if you hear someone say, "Oh, don't worry about your accent. People will understand you. Just focus about speaking correctly." Bullshit. Because TOEFL and TOEIC grade you on intonation, right? If you speak with an upward intonation, right, you probably have heard it in like some movies before. Like an upward intonation sounds like this, and everything that you say kind of go up at the end, and it just sounds like you are so inconfident with what you're saying, and it doesn't sound so natural. You don't sound so confident at all, right? That's not the natural intonation that you hear from a native speaker. So you have to have the right intonation for you to be able to get the perfect score, right? And the other thing that I pointed out is the pronunciation, right? This is another mistake that I see students do all the time, right? Students think that TOEFL and TOEIC will try to test them on their intelligence So they try to use big words. What do I mean big words? For example, words that are difficult, words that are words that probably you don't normally use, but you use it to because you think people will think of you as an intelligent person, right? So if you normally say, "Hey, I like drinking beer on Friday night," right? That's the kind of sentence that you normally say, like, "Hey, I like drinking beer on Friday night," which is fine. That's grammatically correct, intonationally correct, pronunciation wise, it's also correct, right? I like drinking beer on Friday nights. I don't actually drink beer, so if my admin, if my like dean is watching this, I don't drink beer on Friday nights. I only drink it during work hours. I'm just joking. Anyway, so instead of saying, "Hey, I like drinking beer on Friday nights," some students will try to impress the grader by using bigger words. For example, they will say, "Hey, I consume beer every Friday night," right? They choose the word consume instead of drink, right? First of all, that sounds pretentious as hell, right? Don't do that. If you're not the kind of person that normally use the word consume, don't use it. All right, just use the word drink. Second of all, if you keep using big words that you're not familiar with, that you don't normally use, you will screw up the pronunciation because you only have 15 seconds to think, right? So speak naturally. Use the words that you know, right? So you could say, "Hey, I think the people who like taking risks are important to a society." Notice how simple the sentence is, right? I think that the people who like taking risks are important to a society, right? All the words are super simple, but you have delivered your ideas completely in a correct manner. Compare that to, "I have pondered and I have deliberated. I absolutely think that people who take risks or prefer risk are crucial to the development of a society." That's the same kind of idea, but you deliver it with like big words like pondered, deliberate, risk taking, crucial to the development of society, right? If you don't normally use that word, you will screw up the pronunciations and you will get your points taken off, right? So use the words that you normally use. If you want to use big word, if you are like a big word kind of person, like I am, then that's fine. Use big words, like because it's natural to you. If you're not a big word kind of person, well, don't use it, right? But this goes to show, like I said during the speaking skill in the during last week, that you can't focus on just grammar. You can't focus on just your accent. You have to focus on everything, right? The fluidity, the precision, and the intonation of your skill are important. All right, whew, that's a long one. Anyway, and this one is basically the grammar, right? Your language use. So you need to use the right grammar. You need to use the right vocabulary for the kind of things that you are discussing, right? And then last one, this one is the topic development, right? So the response not only has to fulfill the task, right? But the response also has to be sustained and sufficient to the task and well developed in a coherent manner. So basically, you can't just fill the 45 seconds, which is nonsense. You actually have to answer the question in a logical manner. And the trick or the tips that I can give you, and this will be useful when you write your research paper as well, is that you need to chain your ideas between sentences, right? So go back to my answer earlier, right? I said, "Hey, society needs people who take risk," right? That's my first sentence or something like that, right? And then the second sentence says, "People who take risks become entrepreneur who start a startup company," right? So notice that in the first sentence, I said, "Hey, society need people who take risks," right? Society need people who take risks. And then in the second sentence, I use this idea, people will take risks. I keep that idea. And then I said, "Hey, people that take risks becomes a startup company," right? So I have one old idea, one new idea. right? And in the third sentence, I said, hey, the startup companies that we were talking about, they create innovation. So one old idea, one new idea, right? And then I said, hey, these innovations move society forward, right? So one old idea, one new idea, right? That's not the only way to do it, but that's the easiest way to do it, right? Chain your ideas across the sentence. So listeners who are listening to you do not lose track of what the hell you're talking about, right? Which is the most important part in speaking skills. All right, so that's the TOEFL, right? And I show you all this because I want to show you the TOEIC one as well, which is pretty freaking brutal. Let me pull this up right here. Oh, sorry. Oh, my mouse is acting up. Okay, so again, we're just gonna look at the top score possible, right? So that's level 200, I guess, if they're still using this scale. I think they are. Also notice the intonation there. I use the upward intonation. Even though I say like it's not natural, it's only natural to use upward intonation when you either when you are either asking a question or not sure what you're talking about, right? So notice when I said like, oh, I think the TOEIC are still using this grading scheme because I'm not sure, right? So just little thing to get you understand about the intonation. Anyway, to get the perfect score in the TOEIC test, first of all, the speaker need to be able to create. I'm not sure if you can see. It's kind of small on my screen. Let me zoom in a little bit. All right. So test taker need to be able to create connected and sustained discourse appropriate to the typical workplace, right? So this is just a fancy and big word way of saying you need to have a continued train of thought, right? You have to have a continuous conversation about the same topic, right? That's like the small word way of saying it. Notice how this is basically the same as the TOEFL, right? They just want to hear that you can have an idea and develop an idea from start to finish within 45 seconds, which you should be able to do if you have a good command of English. Blah, blah, blah. And then this is also very important. They said when you express your opinion, your speech is highly intelligible, right? Which means they can understand you. That's like the small word way of saying it, right? The speech that you give have to be understandable by listeners, right? So again, this is why I emphasize that you need to use the words that you are familiar with, the words that you use all the time. Because if you start using fancy words for the sake of being fancy, people are going to get confused, right? And then like, obviously the use of basic and complex grammar is good, and the use of vocabulary is accurate and precise, right? And notice this, again, pronunciation and intonation are at all times highly intelligible, right? So make sure you go in with good pronunciation and intonation, which you should have been practicing, right? Because I told you to practice last week, and we all get shit done around here. So your pronunciation and intonation should be very highly intelligible, right? How do you do that? Oh, practice, practice, practice. All right. That was one thing that I had in my mind. Hold on. It was like at the tip of my tongue. I don't remember. Probably not important. Anyway, so I show you the grading rubrics because sometimes I hear students saying like, oh, like this teacher is teaching how to prepare for the TOEFL, but I'm taking the TOEIC, so I'm just not going to go to the class. Or like, hey, this is the TOEFL sample test. I don't need to do it because I'm taking the TOEIC. Or vice versa, like, oh, I'm taking TOEFL, like I'm not doing TOEIC or IELTS or whatever you want to take, like SU tab, CU tab, or whatever, right? The thing is this: English is English, right? The only way for you to pass any test is to do a bunch of exercises, right? The only way for you to pass any English standardized test is just to practice a lot, right? You won't pass any of them if you don't practice. So anytime you have a chance to practice, whether it's TOEFL, TOEIC, IELTS, or whatever, just do it, because you will be graded the same way. You will be graded the same way with the same rubrics. They're just changing the wording around to confuse you and charge you more for the difference between the TOEFL and TOEIC. English is English, right? Thai is Thai. Japanese is Japanese, right? Whatever test you are taking, if you do more work, it will not hurt you, not one bit, because they all test you in the same manner. All right. Now that I have said that, let's go dive into each of the question type, and I will give you specific question types, tips and tricks for passing that kind of question. Anyway, any questions from you guys? All 7 of you right now? I guess people are leaving for Songkran, but yeah, I'm getting shit done around here. So 7 people are all I need. All right, so I've touched that one. Again, the tips for this one is to speak slow enough and not too fast, right? At the right pace for you. And you will know it's the right pace because you get a chance to pause and take a breath, right? And also chain of thoughts, right? Chain your idea from one sentence to another. And if you do that, you will definitely fill out all 45 seconds of it. Okay. For the integrated speaking task, this one is the one that they give you information and you have to answer some questions from it, right? So this one is a little more challenging if you're not used to listening first, because they will give you that question or information either in listening and reading and whatever. So make sure when you hear important information, you latch onto it. Okay. So for example, when somebody express an opinion like, oh, I hate something, like I hate cheese, right? Make sure you listen attentively on why the person hates cheese, because that will probably come up. Okay, so that's the only thing that I can give you. But for this kind of question, they give you a lot of preparation time, and they sometimes give you the transcript as well, so you can look back to it and generate your answer that way. Again, to use your preparation time wisely, make sure you go to the big words that you might use that might trip you over, as in that might give you difficulties when you try to come up with the words that you want to use. For example, for this one, like, you know that you might have to use the word enrollment, right? Enrollment. If you have never spoken that word in your entire life, and you know you have to use that word, that's the time that you spend your preparation. That's the thing that you spend your preparation time on, right? You just go, okay, enrollment. How would I pronounce it? This is how I would have done it, or this is how I did it, I guess, when I took the test. Let's say the word enrollment comes up, and I'm not sure how to pronounce enrollment. In the back of my mind, I will go through all the pronunciation possibilities. For example, enrollment, right? You know there are 3 syllables. So it could either be enrollment, enrollment, or enrollment, right? So again, the difference is this: enrollment, 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 right? And immediately you see that the third one is just kind of screwy. Like it's definitely going to be wrong. It can't be enrollment, because that's just like not English sounding at all. So you're left with enrollment and enrollment, right? And if you keep pronouncing, that's what happens when you speak too fast. If you keep pronouncing it in your head or even out loud, because it's your preparation time, then you will start with like enrollment, 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 enrollment. And you somehow, if you have done your listening and speaking practice enough, you will get that the second one is the one that you should use, right? So that's the tips that I can give you as far as the integrated speaking task of TOEFL concerned. So Ajahn Jantini said, let's organize a mock speaking test. Absolutely. I would love to do that. Any of you that want to have a mock speaking test, no judgment, I will give you a feedback of how to improve. And Ajahn Jantini would also do the same thing, right? We can do it online. We can do it offline. I'm actually not sure with COVID and all, can we do it offline? Whatever. Just send us a text online group chat. We can do it like as a group as well, so you can get feedback from your friend. But again, take tests, take example tests, take mock tests, do everything you can to improve, right? Because TOEFL and TOEIC are the same. Another kind of question that I want to touch on, and this one gives students a lot of trouble as well, are these things. This thing, describe a picture, right? Describe a picture. So the directions said in this part of the test. Oh wait, hold on. Let me do this one first. Read a text aloud, right? So again, in TOEIC, you have this like reading of a text aloud, and the thing that will screw you over with this kind of question are the big words, right? Notice that they give you 45 seconds to prepare, right? And then you have 45 seconds to read the text out loud, right? Those 45 seconds, do not start reading the text in its entirety while you are preparing, because you know how to say the word shopping, you know how to say the word sightseeing, you know how to say the word running, right? But you might not know how to say the word spacious, right? You might not know how to say the word mead, Lake Mead. You might be like, is that Miat, or something, or like you might not know how to say the word spectacular, right? Spectacular. That is the time again to go through the pronunciation example. I mean, all the pronunciation possibilities in your head, and just read it out to yourself, just to convince yourself how it should sound, right? So, for example, this word spectacular might give you a hard time while you're preparing. So again, spectacular, right? There are 4 syllables, spectacular, right? So you can do spectacular, which sounds about right, or spectacular, spectacular, or spectacular, right? Obviously, the last 2 are just kind of cookie, so don't use that. So you're left with spectacular or spectacular, right? And that's when you go through all the possibilities and pick the one that you think sounds better. If you don't have enough experience, you might not pick the right answer. However, notice that out of all the 4 possible answers, you have already eliminated 2. And the first 2 are so similar. Like if you say spectacular or spectacular, you won't get your points deducted off too much, especially if you speak it with conviction. Let me show you what I mean, right? So I would just read off this sentence right here. Right? The first time I'm going to read it with the stress on the first syllable of spectacular, and the second time I will read it with the stress on the second syllable, right? But I will read it with conviction. I will read it as if I am saying the right thing, even though I'm not sure whether it's the right thing or not. So here goes. You breathe clean country air as you view spectacular sights. Second way, you breathe clean country air as you view spectacular sights, right? As you view spectacular sights, as you view spectacular sights. If you say it with conviction, it almost sounds correct, right? So again, go in with confidence, and most importantly, do not use filler words when you read. Do not go, if you are shopping, sightseeing, and running around every minute, your vacation can seem like hard work. Don't do that, okay? Because you are reading, you're not supposed to be thinking. They're just testing you on whether you can use the right muscles to do all the pronunciation. If you think you need to pause or slow down, just slow down and pause. For example, you could say, if you are shopping, sightseeing, and running around every minute, pause. Your vacation can seem like hard work. Pause. To avoid vacation stress, come to the Blue Valley Inn on beautiful Lake Mead. Pause. While staying at our inn, you will breathe clean country air as you view spectacular sights. Pause. Right? So don't rush through it. You have plenty of time in the world. Like 45 seconds is a long time for you to be reading something. All right. So that's the tricks tips that I can tell you as far as reading something out loud goes. All right, let's go back to the picture question. Okay, so in this part of the test, you will describe the picture on your screen in as much detail as you can. You will have 30 seconds to prepare your response. Then you will have 45 seconds to speak about the picture. All right. Again, they are not testing you on your intelligence. Right? They don't want your philosophical argument on why an open air market is better compared to a shopping mall during the COVID season. They don't care about that. They just want to test your English, right? So don't be a smart ass. Be boring. Be boring but correct, because you're not being tested on your intelligence. Here's how people typically approach it, right? They ask you to describe a picture in as much detail as possible. The simplest way to do it is to describe it layer by layer. So you would say, for example, just like when you see any photograph, you would start by saying the setting, right? So I would approach this by saying, it looks to be a photograph of an open air market, right? Anyone can say that. Any fools can look at this photo and be like, oh, I think that's an open air market, right? But it's how you speak, it does matter, right? I believe it is a photograph of an open air market. This seems to be a fruit vendor, right? So you start from like the biggest settings and then go into the details, right? So open air market, fruit vendors. The fruit vendors seems to be open. There are shoppers around looking for fruit. They are selling many kind of fruit. They are selling bananas. They are selling mangoes. I can see mangoes. I can see apples. It seems like the shoppers are middle ages with one child that probably comes with his mother. Right? So that's the kind of thing that you could do, right? Again, they're not looking for your opinion yet. I will touch on that in a little bit, right? They're not looking for your opinion mostly. They just want you to describe the picture, right? This is the sort of thing that you will probably have to do when you do academic work, because you sometimes have to talk about something in a descriptive manner, right? They don't want your opinion. They just want the facts from the picture. So that's one way of approaching it. You just go from like the biggest setting down to the smallest detail. And you could go into like as small of a detail as you want. For example, you could say, oh, I can see 3 female shoppers and 2 male shoppers. The gentleman in the middle of the photo seems to be wearing shorts with sneakers and white socks. The lady to the right of that gentleman in all white with a handbag, right? So that is still correct because you're still describing a picture. But it's boring as hell. You would be correct if you just describe everything, right? From the biggest setting to the smallest setting. And you would be correct. But then again, they are testing on your ability to think in English, right? So start off by describing the photos or the picture because that's what they're looking for. But toward the end of that section, make sure you throw in a little bit of your opinion, just a little bit of your personal touch, right? Just like when you paint a painting, like if you ever like paint a painting and try to imitate like a famous painting, eventually you will want to put your signature on it, right? It's the same thing here. You want to put your little signature on it just to show them that you can think independently, right? So for this one, for example, you could say, oh, it's like an open air market, fruit vendor, plenty of shoppers, 3 females, 1 males, blah, blah, blah. And then you could say, hey, for example, if I have to throw in an opinion here, I would say, hey, it's probably somewhere in the Middle East or in Europe because the shoppers don't seem to have Asian heritage. So let's do that again. Looking at the shoppers, I believe that this market is probably either in the Europe or the Middle East because the shoppers don't seem to have Asian heritage. Or a simpler way to say that would be, hey, shoppers are not Asians, right? So this is probably not in Asia, right? So that's the kind of thing that you could do to put on your personal touch and to show them that you can generate independent thoughts when it comes to using English, right? So note that I am still within the direction of the test, right? The direction of the test asked me to describe a picture. I describe a picture and just throw in my little opinion, right? Or for example, you could say that lady all the way to the left is holding a lot of bananas for one person to eat, right? So I would guess that she's buying it for her family, right? That's a kind of thing that you would go into the details as well. So that's the tips and tricks that I could give you for this kind of question. Another way of approaching it, right, instead of going from the biggest settings to the smallest detail, is to go layer by layer. So you could say, hey, in the foreground, I see 5 people, 2 of which are females, 2 are males, and 1 is a boy. In the middle plane of the photograph, I see fruit stalls that are selling many kinds of fruit. For example, bananas, apples, and mangoes. And in the background, I see a building, probably a market that belongs to the fruit vendor. So you could do it that way as well. Just go layer by layer. You could go foreground to background or background to foreground as well. But eventually, make sure you dive into the details of the photo as well. Woo! All right, so that's describing a picture. For the rest of them, it's just like the TOEFL one, right? They give you information. So use your time to prepare wisely and look for big words that you will get stuck on. For all speaking tests, the key comes down to this. Use all the times you can. Speak with confidence. Don't try to be a smartass. Just give the simplest answer you can think of. And then don't speak too fast or too slow. And the last one is probably the most important. Be confident when you speak. You can speak with the right grammar, perfect intonation, perfect pronunciation. But if you use a lot of and r and like something like that, or you will get your points deducted because you don't have a good command of English, right? So go in with confidence. And the only way to gain confidence from speaking is to practice a lot, practice a shit ton, right? Get shit done. You have to practice, you have to get shit done. That's the bottom line of it. So again, the offer that is being generously proposed by Ajahn Jantini is that we would love to have a mock speaking test for all of you. I don't care if hundreds of you come. I don't care if 1,000 of you come. I don't care if you invite your friends from another university. If you would love to have a mock speaking test, we will provide one for you because I have plenty of time. I have no life. I just work all the time, right? And Ajahn Jantini has a life and a baby, but she also works all the time. So we would love to help you out, all right? So practice, practice, practice. Get shit done, right? Invite your friends, invite your undergrad friends, invite your faculty members. I don't care. We will provide you mock speaking test if you want one. Or in fact, I think Ajahn Jantini is probably scheduling one soon, right? So make sure you sign up for it, and we will probably see you there and provide you some feedback on how you would improve your speaking test or any other section of the test for that matter. Okay. All right. So that is it for today's speaking test in a speaking skills in a standardized test. So again, I want to leave you with this, right? Do not only practice grammar. Do not only practice speaking fast. Do not only practice accent. You need all of them to be able to have a good command in English, right? And to have all of them at the same time, it just takes a lot of practice. Like I can tell you right now, because I sucked at learning English and I spend a lot of time just speaking to myself in the mirror. And you all are very lucky right now because you can just record yourself on a video like I'm doing right now, right? And then you can go back to it and just listen to yourself, see where you went wrong, see how you could have improved yourself, or send us your video. Boom. Send me your video, send Ajahn Jantini your video, and then we can provide you a feedback, either privately if you want or publicly if you love being criticized publicly like I do, right? All right, that is that. So I hope you have a safe and fun Songkran festival that is coming. If you're driving home or travel safe, but don't use a vacation as an excuse to not work, right? A vacation is just an excuse to work even more. There's no days off in this world. Just work harder, right? Go get shit done. All right, I will see you all again next week, and we will talk about, I don't know, I haven't decided. We're gonna talk about either writing skill or listening skill, right? I haven't decided. So if you prefer to have one before the other one, which one you prefer to have first, just let me know in the line on the live chat. If you're new here, right, and you would like to get more information on where to see more of this kind of series of video, make sure you subscribe to the live channel. It's in the description of this video, and also there are resources like all the questions that I show you today. The links are in the video description. All right, so just go down and just take a look, and I will see you next week. Have a safe trip.